Okay, we'll continue our discussion on that backup concept. So last session I shown you different examples, different ways of doing that backup. Even we have seen an example on how to take the backup using Cockpit, HANA Cockpit. But 2.0 onwards, when you're working with the HANA database server, you can't find that Cockpit anymore. Cockpit 1.0 is not at all available. So what SAP has started doing is from 2.0 onwards, they started providing HANA Cockpit separately. So that's why if you just right click on this, open HANA Cockpit, you won't be able to see that cockpit there. So meaning of that is from 2.0 onwards, if you want to work with HANA Cockpit, you need to install HANA Cockpit separately because it's not provided as a component in the database server. Need to be installed separately. So for that, SAP is providing a separate DVD. Download the DVD. Separate software DVD they'll give you. So just download it. And once you extract it, looks like this. HANA Cockpit 2.0. The way you did your HANA database server installation, same process you can follow. Just run HDBLCM and do the installation. It's nothing different. In fact, hardly a couple of inputs you need to provide when you are installing Cockpit. SID, instance number, and master password. That's it. And you don't need to install Cockpit for each and every database in the company. The one HANA Cockpit 2.0 installed in any one machine, Linux machine. And one more thing, remember, when you want to install that HANA Cockpit 2.0, in that Linux machine, we don't need to have database server running. Not at all needed. So only HANA Cockpit 2.0 we can install. And that one HANA Cockpit will be able to use for administration and monitoring of multiple HANA databases running in the company. Doesn't matter how many databases you have. Maybe 2 databases, 20 databases, 100 databases, doesn't matter. You'll be able to centrally administer and monitor from one place, that is from Cockpit 2.0. That's the speciality. Because still 1.0 version, the difficulty is every database server will have its own cockpit separately. Every database server. And then if you want to do a centralized administration, used to be very difficult. In the older version, we used to have something called DBCC, Database Control Center. So even though you're using DBCC, you need to use that cockpit available local to that database. And then what SAP has done is from 2.0 onwards, they clubbed the features of cockpit as well as DBCC, and they have introduced it as cockpit 2.0. So which can be used both for administration and monitoring of any database. In fact, lot more advanced options they given. Actually, Cockpit used to be, we used to discuss cockpit at the end of the training, but now because you're working with 2.0, even when you want to take a backup, you'll feel difficulty. That's why right now itself I'm going to show you how to work with Cockpit 2.0. And another thing, remember, you people need not install Cockpit 2.0 because already installed. That Cockpit is enough. Everyone can work with the same. Don't try to install, which is completely not needed, completely unnecessary. But I'll just show you the process of installing it. A simple procedure, as I told you. So just go to this folder, run HDVLCM as usual. You can see that already installed Cockpit with SID H4C. That's enough. One Cockpit is enough. So when it's not available, usual process of installing will be like this. Provide the installation path, just like your database server /HANA/share, local host name, SID, instance number, master password. That's it. And just continue. And your installation will be completed. But what you need to remember here is this Cockpit 2.0 will take more time for installation compared to your database server. On database server, we are able to install in 10 minutes, but it will take around 25 minutes. That you remember. So that Cockpit instance will be default running. So once Cockpit is installed, everyone can use the same. But the problem is now compared to the previous Cockpits, Cockpit 1.0. And earlier versions, Cockpit 1.0 is specific to one database. So as I shown you in the previous session, so if you go to that Cockpit, you'll be able to do administration of that database. But here, the Cockpit what we have installed 2.0 is not related to any of the database. So that's why, first of all, you need to manage all your resources. Registering of these resources in the Cockpit you have to do. Resources means databases. All the databases need to be registered. And then only you'll be able to go to the Cockpit and start doing your activities. So for that, they provided something called Cockpit Manager. So first you need to go to Cockpit Manager. There you need to register your databases. There is a process, registering resources, then groups you need to create, then a user. To the user you need to assign the group. And then when that user logs into the cockpit, he can access all those databases and he can perform administration of those databases. So once Cockpit 2.0 is installed, remember there are two parts of it. One is called Cockpit Manager, another one is Cockpit. So whenever you want to access Cockpit Manager, the URL you have to use is this. This is the URL for Cockpit Manager 2.0. Observe that URL, https://rhana.51023. There's a fixed URL, fixed ports will be there. In fact, when we do installation at the end, it will give you clearly that message with that URL. It doesn't change. A fixed URL you have. So 51023 is for Cockpit Manager, 51021 for Cockpit. First, always go to Cockpit Manager. And first time when we log into the cockpit, the default user in the Cockpit Manager or the cockpit is, there's a user called Cockpit Admin. There is no system user here because it's not database. So they are given Cockpit Admin. Whatever the master password you enter, log in with that master password. So this is called Cockpit Manager. So here you can see already we have some registered resources. Some groups are there, users also there. So default you won't find any of these resources. All resources are registered later on. Similarly the case with the groups also. So here two approaches we can go with as top down or bottom up concept. Means first we can register resources, then we can create a group, and to the group you assign the resource, then create the user, assign the group to the user. That's one concept. Another concept is first create a user, then create a resource group, assign the group to the user, then register the resources, assign the resources to the group. That way also you can do, whichever you feel comfortable to it. It doesn't make any difference. So if I'm selecting registered resources, so a lot of databases are already registered here. These are all resources. I'll show you how to do it. So whenever you want to register a resource, here on the left bottom you have that register resource button. Click on that. Then specify the host name, general connection details, instance number, whether it's single container or multi-container. description, anything you want to give. Click on step 2, specify the database user, password. Click on step 3. This is connectivity encryption, so not mandatory. Asking you to add to group. In case groups are already available, you add it. Otherwise, next step when we create the groups, we'll do what? Step 5, any contact details, email IDs and all that of any person responsible for that user, for that particular database. Give, click on review, and finally on the right bottom corner, register button is there. Click on that. So you can see your database is registered. Like this, any database you can register. No restriction on number of databases which can be registered here. So our different people are working. They are registering their databases. Then groups, depending on the requirements, you create a group. Basically, these groups are meant for assigning to the users. So you can just define a group. Click on step 2, add your resources. Like this. Step 3, if you have user, you can assign the user here. Meaning of that is only that user will be able to access the systems databases comes under that group. Like that. Anyhow, we'll create user. I'll show you how to create user in Cockpit. Create group. A group is created but not yet assigned to any of the users. Now come back, go to Cockpit users, and we can create a new user. Just giving some initial password. Step 2, add the group. Like that, and click on create user. So that's it. We are done with the concept of registering resources in your Cockpit Manager. So now you can go to HANA Cockpit. Either you can click on that link we have right bottom corner, or else I'm logging out here. You can use another URL, as I told you, that is 21 hostname colon 51021. Instead of 23, go with 21. Automatically this path will come, that you don't worry. So just for testing purpose, I'm logging with that user 1. Otherwise, default login with Cockpit admin, who is administrator of the Cockpit. He can access everything. As this user is logging in first time, you need to change the password. where we have only one resource in that. See that? That user is allowed to access only one resource. So that's how you can control giving access to the databases for the cockpit users. So select that resources. Now, as we are already in the cockpit, I'll show you how we can perform a backup of HANA database using that cockpit 2.0. Same thing, whatever we did in cockpit 1.0. But first of all, if you want to come to the cockpit, this is the procedure you need to follow in 2.0. So select resource. This is our resource RH1. Here we need to provide details, credentials. If you click on connect, there you have to give normal database user password. But don't forget whatever the database user we are giving here is the database user of that RH1 database. And you should have the privileges to perform whatever the activities you're trying through this cockpit. And similarly, if you try any offline admin activities, then we need to give something called control credentials. It's running fine. Offline admin give these control credentials where we have to give SID ADM. So once it is done, select the resource here by clicking on that SID. Once you provide those system credentials, it won't ask again. Let's verify. A lot of time. usually this much of time. Okay, it's done there. Okay, now look at this. Once you select your resource here, providing the credentials, so it will give you all the cockpit options. Anyhow, we are going to have a detailed discussion on this later on. In this, what we want to perform now is we want to take a backup. So in the earlier version of cockpit, you have that separate tile, but here you'll find one option, manage database backups. So just click on that, manage database backups. So once you come to this screen, is usual process as whatever we did in cockpit 1.0, same stuff as it is. You can just click on create backup and same options will be there for you. I'll just check what is the problem there. So here you can see that backup type you have, what type of backup, destination, parameters, and just start the backup. So process is same, procedure is same, the way you perform the backups is same, but to come to this stage, first of all, you need to have some preparation activities. So even when you people are practicing in the lab, use the same cockpit. Don't delete any of the registered resources there. You add your own resources and you can practice with those resources. Entries also okay. Okay, now see this is showing all the backups which I taken earlier. So now I'm taking a new backup. Choose what type of backup, destination, path prefix, what we want to give. This is the destination path. And click on backup. It's not different, same thing what I shown you in the last session. So this particular database which I'm using, I have activated one of the service called DP server. That's why we have 4 services. Otherwise, usually it will be with 3. Now, even though we started from there from cockpit, you'll be able to see that backup running here. It doesn't matter from where you initiate it. Ultimately, it runs in the database server. Okay. So this is how you take a backup of HANA database from 2.0 version onwards using HANA Cockpit. So that's completed. So all the details will show you there as usual. Okay. So that's the procedure where you perform your data backups. Okay. Scheduling part we'll discuss later on because you need to understand few more concepts before getting into Delta data backups and then scheduling part. So as I mentioned till SPS 9, the only type of data backup they used to support is complete data backup. So till SPS 09 we used to rely only on complete data backup and the log backups for recovery. Whereas from SPS 10 onwards, they've introduced Delta data backup options also, like incremental and differential. So first of all, you need to understand how we used to do the recoveries earlier till SPS 9 and what are the drawbacks we have in that. And by using this incremental and differential from SPS 10, how we can overcome those drawbacks. So that we'll discuss. So to know that, we need to discuss about the log backups now. So as already we clearly stated at the beginning itself that HANA database we need to take both complete that data backup as well as log backup. Log backups are performed by the system automatically, whereas only data backups we are taking manually, but whereas log backup is totally automated process. So already that statement I given, backed up automatically. So what do you mean by that automatically? When it happens, how it happens? Those are the points we need to understand. So to know that, some of the settings we need to do here, some of the settings you need to understand. In your backup console, if you go to configuration tab, observe on the right hand side, you have log backup settings. In the log backup settings, there is a checkbox here, enable automatic log backup. And default it is checked, meaning of that is default automatic log backup is enabled in your database. Default. Okay, automatic log backup enabled means what? System will take the log backups automatically. This is actually a configuration parameter. If you go to your configuration tab, as I've shown you other parameters earlier, similarly here this one also. This is the parameter. Enable underscore auto underscore log underscore backup. So the default value set for that is yes. So default automatic log backup is enabled in any HANA database. Okay, if automatic log backup is enabled, what next? Meaning of that is system will take the log backup. When? How frequently? Where those backup files will be written. So here also you can see destination options, file backend you have. And if it's a file, you specify the path. Similar to this data backup path, but slightly different /log we have. You want to give a different path, a different destination, you can give. But as I did mention that it must be in the network file system. So that's the destination, and then backup interval. So default you have 15 minutes there. The default backup interval we have is 15 minutes. These are all parameters only. See this parameter, log underscore backup underscore timeout underscore yes. So this is shown in seconds here. So 900 seconds is the default value, means that is a 15 minutes value. And similarly, the destination also. This one, base path underscore log backup. Same thing, instance directory /backup/log we have. That's what is shown here. So what this will tell you that every 15 minutes log backups will be performed and those backup files will be returned to the destination path. So that's why you can see a lot of log backup files here. If you go to instance directory, backup log. Lot of log backup files will be there in this. A big list. This is happening continuously every 15 minutes. Okay, fine. Every 15 minutes, log backup is taken. But when is that first log backup started? Because whenever your database is installed, any HANA database is installed, default this parameter is set, enable automatic log backup. So it doesn't mean that when you once your database is installed, automatic log backup is taken. It won't, because there's no meaning in having only log backups without data backups. There must be compulsory data backup. Then only there is a meaning and purpose in log backups. That's why when you install your database, log backups won't happen, even though these parameters are set. Log backups will start only when the first complete data backup, that full backup is completed. First data backup is completed. So from there onwards, once a complete data backup is done, so there onwards, automatically log backups will be performed by your system. So that's the meaning of that. That's why once after your installation is done, database server installation is done, go to this configuration tab, you'll find all these parameters. But if you go to that backup destination, you don't find even a single file there. Reason, no complete data backup is performed till that time. So no tools, nothing here, just simple parameters. Using parameters, you're controlling it. That's it. Okay. Now, there is a lot more you need to know about these log backups. It's not that simple. It looks very simple there. Automatically log backups are performed. That's all fine, but just blindly assuming that log backup is performed only with that 15 minutes interval, that's not correct. That's one of the case. You specify that interval, but to know more about this is actually a big discussion. To coming class also, I'm going to explain you this. But here are the statements what you need to remember. If automatic log backup is enabled, the checkbox is checked, then see these statements are given. A log segment is backed up in the following situations. Three situations log segment is backed up. The first one is log segment full. Second one, log segment is closed after exceeding configure time threshold. Third one is when database is started. So whatever we have discussed till now, that 15 minutes interval we are discussing about is the second one, the second situation. That is, log segment is closed after exceeding the configured time threshold. That's the only situation we discussed till now. But there are two other situations also where your log backup is done. One is log segment full situation, and the next one is database is started. So, if anyone asks you when the log backups are performed, just answer like this. If automatic log backup is enabled, then log backups will be performed in those following three situations. So those three situations you need to explain, not just only one. But to understand that, there are some special terms they are using here. They are speaking about something called log segment. So first of all, you should understand what is a log segment and significance of log segments. Where do we have that? And then they are using the terms like if segment is full, log segment full. They're also using the terms like segment is closed. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by full? What is the meaning of closed? So those terms you need to understand first of all. So once you understand the terms, it becomes easier for you to know how frequently these log backups are happening and how and when they are happening. So here you can see those files, right? Segment files, log segment files. So, but to know that, as I told you, it's a long discussion. First of all, you need to have a clear understanding of how data is written from the memory into log volumes. Because you remember, if you go back and revise that architecture class which we have discussed, I clearly explained you how data is written from the memory to the disk. So data will be written into the data volumes, but not only writing the data into data volumes at regular automatic save points, so it also has to write the data into log volumes, which is so important. Every single committed transaction will be written into log volumes. So that same thing, but little bit detailed way you need to have. So once that understanding is there, this becomes very, very easy for you. So I'll show you with the diagrams. You'll be able to realize why they're using those couple of other terms: full situation, closure situations, and I'll also explain you database freeze scenarios. Sometimes database may freeze because of the insufficient spaces available and why it happens. So this all discussion we'll have in the next session. And I'm repeating again, don't try any installation of Cockpit. Whatever the Cockpit I shown you, all of you can use